the Overman Warrior Podcast.
Hi, Rich Hoffman here. So this whole thing with the hemispheric defense that President Trump had announced over the first weekend of March 2026, significant. It's needed to happen for a long time, and it's been this little shell game that's been played at the United Nations. United Nations was always a disaster. It was the wrong premise. And this idea of building a global government funded by American capitalism was preposterous from the outset. Terrible in every way that you can imagine. It was wrong philosophy, wrong approach, and really the world needed a competitive model where merit decided the future. So, and that comes from who has the best economy, who has the best culture, who has the best country, and what makes a good country. And in the United States, I mean, where else in the world do you have as many people from all over the place melting themselves into what you call the borders of the United States? No matter where they come from in the world, they come for the values, the potential to have a house, have a nice white picket fence, and upward mobility, a good stable job, own a car or two for their driveways, raise their kids in a good, healthy atmosphere where they can thrive. You don't go many places in the world where all those things are coming together. Most places in the world are pretty rough. They might be exotic. You might get off the airplane, you're like, oh, I'm in so-and-so place. Oh, look how cool this is. Oh, they have a different way of pouring coffee. Or their tables are much more IKEA-like. You know, there's a lot of the oohs and ahs that go in global travel, but when you've done it enough and you've been around a lot, you see there's a real joy to return back to the United States and the ways of life in America that you don't get elsewhere in the world, and it goes beyond just being a little homesick from the comforts of your normal life. It comes from the values of those cultures and how they arrived where they did. And the United States, whether it was on purpose or by accident, arrived at creating a great opportunity for people to self-govern and have free individual lives. And the most of the world has been under this umbrella, and I've discussed it. That's why I do the blog postings every day. These articles I do them for free. I put a lot of work into them because I want to share with as many people as possible whatever means they arrive at those opportunities to gain knowledge, whatever it is, whatever mechanism it is. If we can have a talk and some of those things can jostle loose from the remote corners of intellect, and so be it. But there's a lot of the world that has fallen for socialism and Marxism and communism, and I talk about it, and people who were trained in public schools to accept these things. They don't like to talk about it, but you have a lot of socialism in Europe. You have open socialists in Canada, Mexico, all up and down South America, the Central America regions. China's communist, North Korea's communist, Soviet Union's trying to figure out how to stay reverent to their past and open their markets up when they were overt capitalist export or communist exporter for many years. Iran, the whole problem there is all about Marxism in the background behind radical Islam, and using that mechanism to overthrow Western influences over the Middle East. You got communist influences all up and down Africa. A lot of the communists hid behind the movements in South Africa were overtly communist. Mandela was a communist advocate. A lot of the issues you find in poorer communities in the United States are Marxist strategies. Behind the way that the funding mechanisms and the entitlement programs and all that were created were done to implement Marxism and communism and socialism into a capitalist market. So that's why you see on a map, you see so many blue zones in the cities, because the infection of Marxism and communism and socialism was designed to come into the United States through those cities, take the cities over, then cascade that out into the suburbs. So this has been a plot for a long time. And it's not a conspiracy by any means. It has only gained traction because good guys, capitalists, people who are from a merit-driven society, got suckered into trying to appease bad people. And to maintain friendships with them, they let themselves be manipulated at the expense of their own values. So that's why you find some of these contentious political battles you have now. You have a immovable force, Marxism, trying to strike up against what became an entitled, guilty force of those who benefited from capitalism and feel like that they have to donate some money to some charity or participate in some altruistic cause to validate that they're not mean people that the enemies, the Marxists, are accusing them of. So that's gotten out of control for many years. And when we talk about hemispheric defense, it was the sheer utilization of capitalism that has kept America floating through all these parasitic entities that have been plucking everybody dry. And we've come to a point where people were tired of it. They voted for Trump because Trump promised to get rid of all that and to push back against it and make sure that we had sovereign borders as the United States. But now we're into the second year of term 2 of Trump's next bid as president, running. We're in year 2 of that, and he's done a lot of good in year 1. And it's confusing to talk about because we talk about Trump winning 3 terms, we talk about election fraud from 2020, and the legitimate election win in 2024 because it was too big to rig. A lot of those same forces that we're talking about that have this global socialist push, and they want to have authority rule through corporate structure into every aspect of people's lives. It didn't change the fact that people had lives they wanted to live. And whether or not the Chamber of Commerce was infiltrated by a lot of these micromanagers that wanted to take Marxism through banking, through all kinds of mechanisms into your backyard, and through property tax infusion, and you're wasting that on these big government expansion programs. If you really get to the root cause of all of it, it still goes back to Marxism and the infusion of it. So that's why people voted for Trump. We're talking about getting rid of property taxes because we don't want government to grow the way it has. We want to rail it in. We don't want government services paying for all that stuff. We want more merit-based, society-driven capitalist advocacy. And we don't want penalized property assets. We don't want high gas prices. We don't want to pay for the infrastructure of a big centralized government that is producing Marxist philosophies. At any level, in our jobs or in our politics, in our sovereign countries, or in our global relationships. So that brings us to this push that Trump has, which I think is very appropriate, towards hemispheric defense of the Western Hemisphere. And that means that just the way that he has demonstrated by the will of the voters, bringing down Venezuela because they've been a threat. The drugs, the purposeful poison of America. I have a grandson that, when he comes over, shows me all these YouTube videos on these pedophile pursuers that go out there and bust pedophiles. But police departments don't do it on their own. They do it, and they make a YouTube video out of it, and they're very popular. And they go out and bust pedophilia advocates who go out there and try to meet kids for underage sex. And it's it's really it's really interesting to see how many sick people there are out there that they have opportunities for perfectly healthy adults, and yet they want the pillage the innocence of children for all kinds of screwed up psychological reasons. And we're supposed to just accept that that's a thing, and accept that the government will handle it, police will handle it, but they don't ever have the mechanisms to do it, and that we're supposed to not fight back against pedophilia. So using that logic, there's a desire for pedophilia, so let's accept it because people want to do it. Same logic has been applied for drugs. People want to do drugs, so should we let them do it? Against the value system that makes us a successful world. And the answer is no. You can't allow socialist, communist, Marxist governments like you have in Mexico, like you've had in China, trying to poison the West with the burdens of their freedoms, trying to poison them so they are killed off, and you replace them with illegal immigrants from socialist, communist countries, which has been the strategy. That's why there's been open borders pouring in. It's what George Soros and his little boy, who's taken this sloppy seconds from Anthony Weiner, his Uma Abedin or whatever her name is. I forget her name. But the aide to, I confuse her name with other people. The aide to Hillary Clinton. These are just people who aren't good folks. They're terrible people. And they've been up to mechanisms of internal self-destruction for their entire lifetimes in some cases. And they're funding it openly, as the Soros people have. And drugs have been part of that strategy, to weaken the integrity of our society and throw it into chaos so that it can be easily toppled by forces that want to destroy it. And they want to destroy it because they can't compete with capitalism. So in order to destroy it, you destroy the people who utilize it and the people who vote for representatives, and so that you can erode them from within. And that's what the drugs have been all about. And it's been running out of Venezuela and Mexico and really all those the countries of South America, Central America, Cuba for certain. It's been terrible, and it's about time that we get control of it, and that means controlling the Western Hemisphere, because letting those other countries destroy our country has not been beneficial or right. And it's they got caught trying to manipulate the situation to their favor, to the spread of Marxism through the chaos of destructive behavior, the drug cartels, the drug dealing. And one of the things I said early, well before anybody thought that Trump was going to be the next president, I had lots of conversations with people who thought it was going to be someone else that was going to be the next president, because Trump had already had his time and he got shoved out and he was going to be exiled. Wasn't going to be able to come back. And I told everybody, no, Trump's coming back, because you don't understand that the political parties aren't in charge of public sentiment. People wanted something out of their representative government. And in the United States, through free speech, they could at least articulate that without the assumption that they were going to have people come to their house like they do in England and shut them down, arrest them for being violators of a dialogue that was government endorsed. So hemispheric defense is a big deal, and the collapse of Cuba was going to be inevitable. I'm talking about in the past tense, because the battles against Venezuela and taking it over with American influence, the effort towards Iran to take it off the map as a sponsor of terror, because we're just tired of sponsors of terror having a free hand at the manipulations of the world. Can't have it. And so Trump is doing what he's been expected to do, and it's crushed those influences out there. And that means that China can't hide behind him as a shield anymore. And that means that revenue that's funding that communist government against us is going to have the head of the snake severed from it. And with that process, that means Cuba loses its ability to be a hostile neighbor right off the coast of Florida. And I would say that going back into the 50s, before communism took over there, before the Castros moved in and did their nonsense, and elements of the United States would put pictures of Che Guevara up on their wall and praise him like he's a Jesus figure, because he advocated for communism, crushing capitalism, and the boat people being pushed over to try and flood Florida with immigrants to completely dominate and destroy the United States from within. Well, it didn't work. Florida is one of the reddest states we have now, even with all that infusion of all those socialist and Marxist criminals that flooded out of the Cuban prisons to flip Florida in destructive ways. Florida found its way regardless, and so did most of the other states in the Union, and it's all coming back to solid red state configurations, and all those blue socialist experiments are being destroyed as we speak. And that's what gives Trump the authority to do what he's been doing, which is wonderful. Highly support it. Glad to see it. And the hemispheric defense is something we should have always been doing, and now it's going to happen, and we're going to see a lot better influence in Mexico. Capitalist, merit-based societies. The cartels aren't going to survive. The will of the people in places like Brazil are going to overthrow their tyrant, that they had there. That's all coming to an end. Argentina has been good. South America is going to move in a much more merit-based society, and the Western Hemisphere itself is going to be well poised to stand up against the influences of communism coming out of China and China's inflections into those regions. It's coming to all that's coming to an end, and the next domino to fall is Cuba. And I personally want to go to Cuba for some vacations. I think there's some important archaeology off the coast of Cuba that needs to happen, and it's about time that the veil of communism that's suppressing all those people come away, and that Cuba can then have upper mobility in ways they haven't before. Maybe they can have some cars that aren't from the 1950s there. That'd be good to see. It's an emerging market, and people there deserve all the great stuff that can come from a relationship with the United States and a capitalist society. And the Western Hemisphere itself can greatly benefit from being a stable region that doesn't have the winds of war blowing on it every 5 seconds from every hostile agent in the world trying to topple America through pressure to put the war on their doorsteps in a magnificent way that we've always wanted. And Trump's doing a great job as president. And Iran needed to be taken off the table, and so did Venezuela, and next to fall will be Cuba. It's time for all those agitators to have to enter the free market, compete with everybody else, and through that process, a much better civilization will emerge. And it's about time to see it. I'm looking forward to going to Cuba for vacation, not in a not too distant future. And Trump is absolutely right. That's the next domino to fall. And it's going to fall in a big way, and it needs to be one of the states, I think, in the United States, along with Greenland, along with Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba. I'm happy to put more stars on the flag and bring them into America as states. I know everybody's a little anxious about that, and there's all kinds of occult references to, well, we got to have only 50 states. I don't think so. I think we'd have. I'm happy if other countries want to become states of the United States, as long as they follow United States constitutional principles. And if they do that, people in those regions, they don't have to flock to America to, be through illegal immigration. They can stay in their own country and get the benefits of what America can bring and expand to the economy of the Western Hemisphere in a very productive way that forces the rest of the world to compete with. And that's how you bring peace to the world. That's how you get merit-based societies to improve the lives of everybody, everywhere, by forcing the governments of those countries to compete with those who are most successful. And by nature, the recipients in those countries of those governments will benefit in healthy ways and have a much better life than what they have now. Just if they only followed the American Constitution, the world would be far better off, because it's a work of philosophy, not just law and order within the borders of the United States. It's something that could benefit everybody on planet Earth, and will soon benefit people who are living on the moon and living on Mars and living on various moons around Jupiter and in space. It's about time that the American Constitution be looked at as the way for the human race to propel itself forward. And the time is now for it. And that starts with defending the Western Hemisphere in ways that Trump has officially dedicated us to do. It's an expansion of Homeland Security, and it's about time. Happy to see it. Anyway, Rich Hoffman here. Share, subscribe, make tomorrow a better day. If you haven't read my book, The Confederate's Guide to Business, I think you'll love it. Anyway, have a good day.
Thank you for listening.